All right, so uh, let's dive into the story of one of the most interesting figures in Roman history, Queen Zenobia
Queen Zenobia of Palmyra.
of Palmyra,
Yeah.
whose story is one of, well, ambition
Yeah.
and power and ultimately, kind of defiance in the face of, well, an empire.
It's a story that really captures the imagination, doesn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, a queen ruling over this vast territory, challenging the might of Rome itself. It's almost like mythical.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's so remarkable is that this wasn't some far off, ancient legend. This was a real person
Right.
who lived during the 3rd century AD,
Yeah.
a period when the Roman Empire was really kind of teetering on the brink of collapse.
Yeah, and this is where the context gets really interesting. You have to kind of imagine, an empire that's riddled with all these internal struggles. You've got barbarian invasions, you've got economic instability, you've got a constant power struggle among Roman generals.
Oh, yeah.
They're practically tripping over each other to become emperor. And many of them only rule for, a year or two before meeting pretty violent ends.
It sounds more like a chaotic reality show than an empire.
Well, in a way it was. I mean, historians even call this era the crisis of the 3rd century. It really was a turning point in Roman history.
Yeah.
And amidst all this chaos, you have figures like Zenobia, who are kind of on the outskirts, on the periphery of the empire, who see an opportunity to rise.
So this is where Zenobia's husband, Odaenathus, comes into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he was a powerful figure
Mm-hmm.
in Palmyra, which was this strategically vital city in what is now Syria.
Yeah, and Palmyra itself was really interesting. It was this key trading hub, crossroads, connecting the Roman world with the East.
Mm.
And when the Sassanid Empire, Rome's biggest rival in the East, started to encroach on Roman territory, Odaenathus, he was the one who stepped up to defend the empire.
And he didn't just defend. He actually achieved some significant victories, pushing back the Sassanids and gaining control of a vast territory. I mean, we're talking an area stretching from modern-day Turkey all the way down to Egypt.
Mhm.
It's massive.
And it's important to note that he could have easily just declared himself emperor,
Oh, yeah.
as many others did during this chaotic period. But he remained loyal to Rome, even after the Roman Emperor Valerian was actually captured by the Sassanid king Shapur.
Now, that must have been a huge blow to Roman prestige.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, to have your emperor captured by your enemy.
It was a humiliating defeat. I mean, there are accounts that suggest that Shapur even used Valerian as a footstool.
You're kidding, as a footstool.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine the kind of shock waves that was sent through the empire.
I mean, talk about adding insult to injury, right?
Absolutely. It was a stark reminder of Rome's vulnerability at this time. And it's against this backdrop of Roman weakness and internal strife that we see the emergence of Zenobia as a powerful figure.
So tragedy strikes when Odaenathus is murdered.
Yeah.
Possibly by a disgruntled family member,
Mhm.
leaving this power vacuum. And this is where Zenobia, she really seizes the moment.
Yeah, she doesn't officially inherit her husband's position, but she acts as regent for her young son, Vabalethus, and effectively kind of assumes control,
Right.
which was, kind of defying Roman norms and expectations.
This is where her incredible ambition and political savvy really start to shine through, right?
Right.
She doesn't just sit back and wait for instructions from Rome. She starts governing,
Yeah.
strengthening her military. I mean, there are accounts of her settling religious disputes.
Yeah, she was a skilled diplomat and a shrewd ruler. There's no doubt about that. We even have these tantalizing glimpses of her court, attracting intellectuals, philosophers. So she was clearly a patron of learning and culture as well.
It really paints this picture of her as a very sophisticated and powerful queen. But all of this was still technically under the umbrella of Roman authority.
Mm.
What changes that? What's the turning point?
Well, opportunity knocks when the Roman Emperor Claudius Gothicus dies, and Zenobia sees this as her chance to make a bold move.
And boy, does she ever.
She doesn't hesitate.
No, she marches her armies
Yeah.
and conquers the Roman province of Arabia, right?
Yes, and that's just the beginning. She then sets her sights on Egypt, which, as you know, was essentially the breadbasket of the Roman Empire.
Right. Control Egypt, you control the grain supply.
Yeah.
You control Rome.
Exactly. And Zenobia, she understood this perfectly. She captures Alexandria, the crucial port city. and effectively takes control of Egypt. This is a move that Rome simply cannot ignore.
It's a direct challenge to Rome's core.
Absolutely.
I mean, she's controlling their food supply.
It gives her immense leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, to really solidify her position, she declares her son, Valithus, co-emperor.
Right.
Starts minting coins, issuing official documents. She's playing the game of power on Rome's terms. But, she's rewriting the rules.
It's a brilliant strategy. And, it seems that she may have even hoped for some kind of partnership with the new Roman emperor, Aurelian.
Aurelian, the restorer of the world. He doesn't sound like the type to just tolerate a challenge to his authority.
He certainly wasn't, and this is where the story takes a really dramatic turn.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the story of Zenobia, the rebel queen who took on Rome. We left off with a confrontation brewing between Zenobia and the new Roman Emperor Aurelian.
And it's a confrontation that really, I think, captures the essence of this period in Roman history. This chaos, the ambition, the struggle for power that was just playing out on this massive scale.
So let's set the stage here. We've got Zenobia firmly in control of Egypt and parts of the East, ruling her own empire, essentially. And then we have Aurelian, this ambitious emperor who's determined to, restore Rome to its former glory.
Yeah, I mean, Aurelian himself was, he was a fascinating figure. He was a military genius. I mean, he earned the nickname Restorer of the World for a reason. He was known for his discipline, his strategic brilliance, his ability to inspire his troops.
Sounds like almost like a Roman superhero.
Yeah, he did have this kind of larger-than-life persona, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And, he wasn't afraid to use force to achieve his goals. But he also had this reputation for being relatively fair, even merciful, which was pretty rare for Roman emperors during this time.
So how does this clash of personalities, how does it play out? Do they try to negotiate, or does it immediately escalate to war?
Well, it seems like Zenobia, she may have initially hoped for some kind of, peaceful resolution, maybe a recognition of her autonomy within the empire.
Okay.
I mean, she was presenting herself as a Roman Augusta, using Roman symbols and titles, and, she may have even envisioned some sort of power-sharing arrangement with Aurelian.
But Aurelian wasn't really interested in sharing power.
Not really, no. He saw Zenobia's actions as a direct challenge to his authority, a threat to the stability of the empire. And he wasn't going to tolerate any rivals, especially not one who had seized control of, such a vital region like Egypt.
So diplomacy's off the table, and we're headed for a showdown. Where does this confrontation, where does it take place?
Well, the two armies clash in a series of battles across Asia Minor, each one more intense than the last.
Oh, wow.
And, to her credit, Zenobia, she proved to be a formidable opponent. I mean, she personally led her troops, her forces fought fiercely, and they actually held their own against Aurelian's legions for quite some time.
So, she wasn't backing down without a fight. But in the end, I mean, Aurelian's superior military strategy and the sheer size of his army, I mean, that had to have taken its toll. Right?
Oh, absolutely. The decisive battle took place at Emesa in what is now Syria. And while Zenobia's forces, they fought bravely, they were ultimately defeated.
So what happens to Zenobia? She killed in battle?
Or captured. So she actually manages to escape from the battlefield at Emesa. She flees back to Palmyra, to her capital city, hoping to regroup, make a final stand. But Aurelian, he pursues her relentlessly and lays siege to Palmyra.
So it must have been a desperate situation. You've got your city surrounded by Roman legions, your hopes of independence, just dwindling with each passing day.
It was, and eventually, realizing that resistance was futile, Zenobia, she attempts to flee.
To Persia.
To seek support from the Sassanid Empire, but she's captured by Aurelian's forces before she can reach safety.
Captured but alive. So what does Aurelian do with this rebellious queen, this queen who had, defied him and almost succeeded in, breaking away from the empire?
Well, this is where Aurelian's character, I think, really comes into focus.
He could have just had her executed, right? I mean, that was pretty standard practice for Roman emperors dealing with rebels.
Oh, absolutely it was. But Aurelian, despite his reputation, as a stern, ruthless leader, he chooses a different path.
He shows mercy.
He does. Instead of executing Zenobia, he decides to bring her back to Rome as a captive.
So wait, so the queen who defied Rome, she's paraded through the streets of Rome.
She is. It was a customary Roman practice, to showcase your captured enemies in a triumphal procession. It was a display of Roman power and the emperor's victory.
Okay, so, must have been a humiliating experience for Zenobia, but at least her life was spared, right? And what happens to her after the parade?
Well, this is where the story, I think, gets really interesting.
Okay, you've got me intrigued.
Instead of, imprisoning her or subjecting her to further punishment, Aurelian, he actually grants her a relatively comfortable life in Rome.
Comfortable life for a rebel queen. Okay, that's not what I was expecting. What did this comfortable life, what did it actually entail?
Well, she was given a villa near Tivoli,
Right.
allowed to live with her children, and even received a pension from the Roman state.
Wow, that's a far cry from a dungeon or a public execution.
Did it?
Aurelian really did show remarkable leniency towards her.
He did, and it's a decision that has actually puzzled historians for centuries.
Hmm.
Some speculate that, it was a calculated political move, to appease the eastern provinces and prevent further unrest.
Okay.
Others believe it was a genuine act of mercy, reflecting Aurelian's character.
It's fascinating to think about what motivated Aurelian. Was it just cold, calculated politics? Or was it something more human, like respect for a worthy adversary?
It's a question that we can only really speculate about, but regardless of his motivations, the fact remains that Zenobia, this extraordinary queen who dared to challenge Rome, she lived out her days not as a prisoner, but as a Roman matron.
It's a surprising twist in a story that's already been full of twists and turns. So Zenobia's story takes this unexpected turn.
And her story, despite her defeat, it continues to resonate, doesn't it? I mean, she's become this almost mythical figure, a symbol of resistance and independence.
But her rebellion, it did come at a cost. What happened to Palmyra, her beloved city, after her capture?
That's a question we're going to explore in our final segment.
Okay.
And it's a part of the story that really highlights, I think, the complexities of power,
Yeah.
the fragility of empires, and the enduring legacy of individuals who, dare to challenge the status quo.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been going through Zenobia's rise to power, her challenge to Rome, and ultimately her capture at the hands of Aurelian. But like any good story, there's an aftermath. So, what happened to Palmyra, this jewel of Zenobia's, her short-lived empire?
Well, Palmyra's fate it's really a tragic kind of counterpoint to Zenobia's story.
Yeah.
Remember Aurelian, he had this reputation for trying to reintegrate his defeated enemies back into Roman society.
Hmm.
He even offered positions to some of Zenobia's supporters.
Right. It was almost like a forgive and forget policy, Roman style.
Exactly. But Palmyra, it became an exception. You see, after Zenobia's capture, while Aurelian was busy in Egypt, the city revolted again.
So even without Zenobia, they still wanted to resist Roman rule.
It seems that way. Maybe they hope to regain that independence they had briefly experienced under Zenobia, but this second rebellion, it proved to be a fatal miscalculation. Aurelian, maybe feeling like his earlier clemency had been betrayed, well, he returned to Palmyra with a vengeance.
This is where the restorer of the world shows a different side of himself.
Yeah, unfortunately. Aurelian's troops, they sacked Palmyra. Its legendary wealth was plundered. Its magnificent structures were desecrated. The city, this once vibrant hub of trade and culture, well, it was left a shadow of its former self.
It's hard not to see that as a reminder of the brutality of ancient warfare and the price of defiance against an empire like Rome.
Absolutely. And it also, highlights those complexities of Aurelian's character. He could be merciful, he could be pragmatic, but he was also capable of, really ruthless brutality when challenged.
It's quite a contrast to Zenobia's, relatively comfortable captivity in Rome.
It is, yeah. It's almost as if their fates were reversed. Zenobia, the defeated queen, she finds a degree of peace and security in the heart of the empire that she challenged, while her city, the symbol of her ambition and defiance, well, it suffers a devastating fate.
Makes you wonder if Zenobia ever, witnessing the destruction of her city, if she ever regretted her rebellion, or maybe she saw it as this inevitable price of freedom.
We can only speculate about her thoughts. But her story, the fate of Palmyra, it serves as this reminder that that individual choices can have these these really significant ripple effects that extend far beyond a single lifetime.
It also underscores the fleeting nature of power, doesn't it?
It does.
You know, one moment you're a queen commanding armies, the next you're a captive watching your empire crumble.
A powerful lesson for sure. Zenobia's rise and fall, it reminds us that power is rarely, if ever, absolute, and that even the most ambitious individuals are ultimately subject to fate and the consequences of their choices.
But even in defeat, Zenobia's story continues to captivate us, right?
Yeah.
She's become this almost mythical figure, a symbol of resistance against oppression, a reminder that, even the most powerful empires can be challenged.
And that's that's the enduring power of history. It's not just a collection of dates and names. It's a tapestry of these human stories full of triumphs and tragedies, ambitions and consequences that continue to, resonate with us across the centuries.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Zenobia's world, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think Zenobia's story, it encourages us to really grapple with the complexities of the past. She wasn't simply a hero or a villain, She was a woman of remarkable intelligence, ambition, and courage who made these bold choices in a very specific historical context. And those choices, while ultimately leading to her downfall, they continue to spark debate and fascination even to this day.
It's a good reminder that history is full of nuance, that individuals can really shape the course of events, and that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit can not only endure but inspire.
Well said. And I think on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the extraordinary world of Zenobia, the rebel queen of Palmyra.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the life and legacy of this fascinating figure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop diving deep into the wonders of the past.